Dear right-wingers, I'm bored with politics. Let me amend that. I'm bored with what passes for political discourse online. We now exist in a state where destroying the country to own the opposition is a viable political strategy, where no one really listens to argumentation from the other side because they're too busy cooking up some ad homs for their internet cum sports. And I call them cum sports instead of blood sports because what we're really talking about here is not a bunch of gladiators going into an arena. We're talking about a bunch of losers jerking themselves off about how correct they are about everything. Well, let me spoil your fun, and mine too, because I'm not exempting myself from any of this. No one is correct about everything. Hell, I honestly remain unconvinced that anyone is correct about anything. No matter how smart you are, no matter how careful you are, you're definitely wrong about a metric fuckton of things. All right? Therefore, if you're not approaching literally every single topic that you talk about with a healthy dose of humility, you're probably doing yourself and anyone listening to you a grave disservice. But hey, look on the bright side. I could be wrong about that. Anyway, this video is called An Open Letter to the Right. And so I assume that there are some conservatives watching right now. And if you're one of them, let me tell you what you can expect from this video. Let me start off by saying, this isn't going to be an attack video against you. There's plenty of those all over my channel. You can go watch them at your leisure if you want. But this also is not going to be like a let's hold hands, let's sing Kumbaya. It's just not that thing either. Because that would be really gross, syrupy, feel-good, schmaltzy, and just way too rote, way too commonplace in the American discourse, and everyone recognizes it as hypocritical, pandering garbage, right? Because we hear it every election cycle. No one really believes it. It's the political equivalent of a fat person always talking about their upcoming diet. But the reality is that the left and right are not going to stop being at each other's throats anytime soon. Their animosity is not going anywhere, nor are my man tits. Unity is not impossible, but it's like every election cycle. What do they ask the president? What do you have to say to the people who didn't vote for you? And they always, I'm gonna be your president too, and I'm here to represent you, and I want to bring the country together. Blah 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 blah. Every president makes a big spectacle. Early on in their presidency, I'm going to bring the country together. I'm going to bring the country together. No one's brought the country together. The country doesn't really seem all that interested in being brought together. Maybe it should be. I don't know, but it doesn't really seem like it is. So anyway, if this is not an attack video, and it's not a Kumbaya, can't we all get along, let's hold hands, unity video, what is it? I mean, maybe it's a little of both of those things, probably more attack, but, that's just me. Maybe it's something in between. Maybe it's something else entirely outside that paradigm. I don't know. I'll leave it up to you what it is. You can decide. That's fine by me. So, this opening kind of question I have for the right, it's going to sound, once again, I want to remind you, it's going to sound a little bit insulting, but it's not meant to be. It really isn't. First thing I want to say to you is, don't you ever get tired of being liars? I don't want to argue about this, by the way. I'm not going to entertain an argument on this front. You are liars. I don't care about you. If you want to tell me you're not a liar, that's just you lying about being a liar. I just wonder, though, does it cause you fatigue? For instance, like when you lie and say that Target is grooming kids, or that school libraries are peddling gay porn, or whatever your psychotic delusion of the week is. Do you ever get like a nagging feeling in the back of your head that kind of tells you, hey, why am I doing this? Or does that little twinge of conscience just kind of never really manifest? I don't know. Like, do you struggle against it? Like, you tell the lie, but then part of you is like, I shouldn't lie. But then part of you is like, the ends justify the means. Or Do you just lie to yourself as well? Maybe that's the truth. Maybe the truth is you're lying so hard and you're suppressing the little voice that says don't lie so hard that you ultimately just believe your own lies. Personally, though, I don't think so. I think that you're very cognizant of the lies you tell. I think that it's the fact that you feel like the ends justify the means. Am I wrong about that? Let me ask you this. When you have to lie over and over and over and over and over again to justify your beliefs, doesn't it ever occur to you like, hey, maybe my beliefs are fallacious? Because if you had true beliefs, they wouldn't need an endless litany of lies to justify and support them, would they? Now, once again, this is not an attack. I know it sounds mean, but these are honest questions. It doesn't, really matter to me if you answer them. I don't need answers from you. What I'm encouraging is you to ask these questions of yourself. Have you ever done that? Have you ever asked yourself these things? And if so, what did you say? Once again, I'm not asking for me. I'm asking you to ask you. Some of the stuff you guys say, I'm not even really sure where the hell you get it from. Like, there's this meme you're always putting forth out there, like, the left wants to make us eat bugs. The left wants us to eat bug burgers. Such a weird thing. Such an odd deflection. Because what's been said on the left is like, hey, if we don't change our sustainability practices, like looking at this data, it seems like the long-term sustainability of meat production is not there. And we may be forced to seek out alternate means of protein production if we don't change our ways. And instead of hearing that, what you want to hear is the left is trying to make us eat bugs. But you know that your weird little deflection of they're trying to make us eat bugs, that doesn't actually change the reality, right? The problems of the world don't just go away because you refuse to talk about them. You do understand that, don't you? Like, if you don't, why don't you? And if you do, why are you acting like this? Maybe you just don't care? Or maybe, I guess maybe you just think like, hey, if by the time these repercussions of humanity's actions come around, maybe I'll just be dead. Like, is it just purely about ego to you? Do you just not care about like future generations at all? As long as you're okay? Maybe that's it. Like, why do you fight tooth and nail to avoid confronting very, very basic truths when you must know on some level that you're not going to make those truths go away just because you don't like them? It boggles my mind, personally. I think it must just be pure selfishness. But I guess this all does feel a bit attacky. There is some condescension to it. I admit that. But it's kind of hard not to feel condescending when you guys act like such morons all the time. Okay, that was an attack. But it is like 90% of the time your arguments are just you pretending like you don't understand what's being said and screaming insults and declaring that you won. How is that anything other than completely tiring for you? Like, doesn't it get so tedious? I would find it tedious if I were you. That's why I ask. I would find it beneath me. And I'm a guy that doesn't find much of anything beneath him. I'm like, I wouldn't be embarrassed to wear a pink miniskirt and get spanked by a dominatrix dressed as the evil queen from Snow White on national television. Actually, that sounds pretty cool. But I wouldn't be embarrassed at all by that, okay? I'd be thrilled, to be perfectly honest with you, because I'm on that level. But I would be completely embarrassed if I argued my points as piss poorly as you do. Just being honest. But you know what? Because things are feeling a bit too mean at this juncture, let's do some olive branch stuff. We did a bit too much of the attacky type stuff, I think. Maybe we do need a little bit of a hey, I get it. So let's talk about what we have in common. And by we, I don't mean the left and the right. I mean me personally and conservatives in general, okay? I don't want to speak for anyone else on this, but if others want to agree with me, they're free to do so. So here's a nice thing about conservatives. There is something in the conservative spirit. There is an idea that basically I think could just be boiled down to 3 words. Leave me alone. That I understand. Because I don't like being bothered. I don't like bureaucracy. I don't like red tape. I don't like crowds. I'd prefer a nice country house where I can raise goats and walk outside naked without having to worry about anyone else seeing me. I'm not interested in apartments. I would rather have a nice farmhouse in the country than a beautiful apartment in the most cosmopolitan city. You know? I'll be really honest with you. This might even get me in trouble with some of like the lefties I've cultivated. I use the N-word in private. Yeah, sorry. Sorry to the lefties. I know you right-wingers listening to this don't need that apology. I don't call people the N-word. I want to make that clear. I don't go around using it as a pejorative against people. But if it comes up in conversation, I say the word. Because I think adults using euphemisms is kind of preposterous and silly. I will also sometimes say it for the sake of making a joke work. In fact, I really don't have any aversion whatsoever to racist or sexist or misogynistic jokes. The problem for me is when people think those jokes should be taken seriously, or people who only use jokes as a cover to mask some deeper truth that they themselves really are racist, sexist, or misogynistic. I don't consider myself any of those things, not really. But I recognize there is a gradient, and if anyone decides that I am those things, I really don't care. Go ahead, knock yourself out, slap me with whatever label you want, because I can't stop you. I'm fine, by the way, if people are offended by jokes that I make, because at the end of the day, if I'm making an offensive joke, it's because I want people to be offended. It doesn't make sense to make an offensive joke and then cry that people are offended, which seems to be a popular pastime among right-wing comedians these days. But here's where I have to start criticizing again, okay? Because while you guys on the right are so defensive of your offensive humor, you're simultaneously constantly fucking offended yourselves by the dumbest stuff imaginable. At least someone offended by a racist joke has a point. You guys get offended by M&Ms and Budweiser marketing to trans people. Why? Do you think trans people don't like M&Ms? Do you think trans people don't drink beer? What are you so butthurt about? You want to know what I think? I think you're just really not all that secure in your own gender identity. Not as secure as you want to believe you are. And you're scared that if society normalizes trans stuff too much, you might find that you have more in common with the supposedly opposite sex than you thought. Which is a really stupid thing to be scared of, guys. You're basically terrified that you might become a more fully realized human being. What a nightmare, right? The thing I hate most about you guys, honestly, is you're social obstructionists that seem to get off on making other people's lives miserable for no reason other than you're sort of scared of your own freedom. And it would be at least kind of marginally, fragmentally respectable if you at least admitted it. But instead, you want to go around talking about like you're the great champions of freedom. But really, you only have a very limited set of narrow freedoms that, in the grand scheme of things, are pretty useless or even detrimental. You think people shouldn't have the freedom to be trans, but they should have the freedom to not get vaccinated during a pandemic. That's pretty insane to me. And if I'm painting anyone with too broad of a brush here, I'm sorry. I know not every conservative is the same, but to be fair, most of you are remarkably ideologically similar. It's almost like you're highly collectivistic, despite your protestations of rugged individualism. We will not comply. Yes, you will. You do it all the time. It's basically what you do. Man, I keep trying to be nice, but I guess it's kind of hard. You really do frustrate me. because I want to live on a nice planet where people are free and people are happy, and it seems like roughly 80% of the time the people stopping that from happening is you guys. In fairness, the other 20% of the time, it's like a smug liberal crybaby who thinks every microaggression is like a national tragedy or whatever. But they don't concern me as much, because while they are total pussies who thrive on human misery just like you are, they don't typically have guns. By the way, you know what I've noticed? I've never heard one of you guys outline what society should be like. You always complain incessantly about, what shouldn't be, but you never explain what should be. You never do lay out exactly what you want. You know what I think you want? Starship Troopers. Not necessarily the Heinlein novel. I haven't really read it, to be honest with you. But the Verhoeven movie, I think you want a highly militarized society where civil rights are kind of looked at as this bleeding heart artifact of, the past that shouldn't be a factor. That's just an impediment to the glory of the empire. I think you want to subjugate someone or something really badly. And I don't think you really care too much who it is, as long as it ain't you. That's the impression I get after sharing the planet with you for 38 years and counting. But maybe hey, look, I'm open to being wrong on that. In fact, I hope I'm wrong about that. I want it to turn out that maybe we all do just want the same things, and there's just a communications issue. We all want freedom. We all want prosperity. We all want happiness. We just have different ideas about how to get there. But it really doesn't feel that way. It really feels like you want slavery, poverty, and misery. And I don't get how anyone could want those things. Maybe on a personal level, I get it. Like, if you want to be a slave to your dominatrix, or, poverty because you're giving all your money to a findom or something, guess that's the same thing, or misery because she's beating you. I get it. I get all that. If you want to be a hopeless little simp bitch, oh, please, master, please, mistress, no, don't hurt me. I get that in like your personal life, but I don't get why you'd want to structure society around that. Okay? I don't get how anyone would want that on a societal level. So maybe I'm mistaken about that being what you want, but it kind of feels like that based on what I've seen. And then there's the fact that, I know a lot of you guys in my personal life. It's not like I don't know conservatives. And when of the conservatives I know in my day-to-day life, they're not all great, but a lot of them are. A lot of them are cool people. A lot of them are fun to be around. A lot of them are nice. A lot of them are generous. A lot of them seem like they're happy people with happy lives. At least as happy as anyone else. So it's hard to reconcile the way that I see individual conservatives that I know compared to how conservatives act collectively. So, what am I missing? Are you just stupid? Are you fearful? Are you playing some larger game where the ends justify the means? And if so, what the hell are those ends? And what makes them so desirable in the fucking first place? At the end of the day, even after all this time and all this dialogue, I really just don't get what makes you tick. I don't get your values. I don't get your approach. I don't understand why you get upset by the things that upset you. I don't get why you want the things you want. And I get the distinct impression that this inability to comprehend one another is sort of a mutual thing. And that's actually kind of a hopeful thing for me, because maybe that does show that it is just a communication problem. And while I don't think that we're going to be holding hands anytime soon, here's my biggest question of all in all this ranting and raving, and probably a little bit too much attacking. Shouldn't the ultimate goal here still be unity? Shouldn't the question of why can't we all just get along be at least examined a little deeper, rather than just thrown around, as a platitude and ignored by the masses in general because it just seems like nothing more than an empty platitude? Maybe we should give it a little bit more weight. Shouldn't more of our discourse be geared at least a little bit towards that goal, towards the idea that human beings can be reconciled? At the very least, shouldn't any political ideology make clear its goals and argue them honestly? Because if that's the criteria, I hate to tell you, but I think you guys have done a really piss poor job. One final thought before I go. Every right-winger and every left-winger I've ever known has claimed to hate the corporate elitists who have brought our political process to its knees and subverted the will of the people. So maybe getting rid of them is the one thing we can both agree on. Maybe our discourse would be more productive without the forces of oligarchy setting us at odds to serve their own ends. Now, I'm not saying that we don't have any naturally occurring odds with one another. That seems like we do. But what I am saying is, it seems like we both agree that there are certain people in the corridors of power who are using those disagreements between us to kind of distract from what they're doing, which is raiding the treasury. So maybe we could do something about them and then settle our own little dispute later. Just a thought, just an idea. These are just questions. These are just ideas. I'm leaving them with you. You tell me what you think. Or don't. I don't really care. Just mull it over in your own head, in the privacy of your own little brain. Roll that shit around. Or don't. Or just say, hey, this guy's a fucking idiot. I don't have to listen to him. He's a dumbass. I don't even know why I watched this whole video. I'm out. But if you are going to do that, I don't know. There must be something compelling if you're still watching at this point, right? Anyway, I'm the Amazing Atheist. I won't take up any more of your time. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. If you want to comment down below, I certainly will read it. So don't feel like I'm disregarding your opinion. I'm just letting you know that I don't expect it of you. Thanks for watching. Blah, blah, blah. Goodbye.